Hey there, you hopefully have a client now and you're ready to actually go out there and serve and be that world-class CFO. It's simply bringing value to that client or clients as it may be. But I want to zoom out a little bit real quickly. And I just want to introduce a concept I've talked about before. This came out of the book. You may have heard of the Black Swan book. Everyone thinks of that book. Oh, that book's like about earthquakes and the end of the world. But he actually talked about not just one-off events that are horrific, like a hurricane, but also one-off events that can be very, very good. And he calls them non-lottery tickets. And these are simply opportunities that come in your life or your client's life that have a very limited downside in both cost and time, but potentially a huge upside. So they're really good. He advises individuals to seek out these free non-lottery tickets. So I'm going to talk about this as it relates to you and your career, but also your client's career. So when we talk about a lottery ticket, we all know what the deal is. Yeah, the cost is almost zero, but the chances of winning are also basically zero. Yes, somebody always wins, but it's not going to be you. Now, what's cool about a non-lottery ticket, it also costs very little, both either in time or money, but still has huge upside. And the odds of it coming in and having a payoff are much, much higher. I have been the beneficiary of several non-lottery tickets. I'm going to do some examples of these at the end of this video. You'll get to see some real examples and how this can relate to your life. But again, always be on the lookout for things that might bring massive value to you or your client that don't cost you a lot of money or a lot of time. So let's just leave that on the lookout. So we're going to again be on the lookout for that for our clients and our own career. So it's obviously if you find something that costs you little and it has a huge return, that's going to be great for you. But if you do that for a client, you're going to have somebody that worships you for the rest of your career and tells every one of their friends and vendors and customers about you. And so we want to be thinking about this for our clients as well. And again, these aren't things that just have massive payoffs. They also are unique in that they have a very small investment of time or costs. So we'll have to think about that. So in our program, when you landed the client, you tossed out the value chain. This is basically the promise to the client. Hey, we're going to add a lot of value. And those things over in the right column, we're going to be doing a ton of stuff, whether it's month end, reporting, taxes, cash flow, whatever. And the things on the left are the big high value levers that all owners want. The top three they'll tell you about: more cash, lower taxes, great reporting to run their business. Those three. Those are all built on top of rock solid world-class accounting, which we'll do with our tools in our program. And then finally, making a difference in the world. And peace of mind is all about risk mitigation. We're CFOs. We don't only look for making money, we also protect the risk, the downsides, the insurance, the controls, the governance as well. So this is our promise to the client that we're going to do a lot of stuff. We're not just bookkeepers or accountants or even fractional CFOs. That's our promise. And then we're going to talk about delivering. This is just another way of looking at the exact same thing. I've never found a business owner that didn't want these key things: those risks being mitigated, lower taxes, more cash, world-class reporting to run their business. And then I often have to remind them, hey, all those good things are built on top of that accounting layer. We got to take care of that first. That's our month-end close. We're going to talk about that and what we actually do day in and day out and month in and May out. But it's all going to tie back to this value chain and providing value. I'm going to hammer that home. Everything we do is about value. And so when we're doing a bank rec, we've got to think, how does that relate to value? If we're doing AP, how does that relate as well? And in today's world of AI, we need to be more than fractional CFOs or bookkeepers or tax people or firms. We need to be the co-pilot helping the business owner and the investors be the co-pilot of their business, be the number two, help them from startup to exit, to scale profitably, to own that entire back office, of course, bookkeeping, tax, payroll, but also HR, safe software, AI, compliance, licensing, insurance, banking, many more things as well. We'll dive into any stone if we find value, and I'll talk about some of this, how I brought value, even on the operation side, and even when I knew nothing. I'm going to show you many examples. That's part of the non-lottery side. I don't need to go out and study a degree in farming to bring value to a farmer. What if I just know somebody like, say, a guy named Wally? and I know he's an expert, and I bring Wally to the farm and he brings value. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So again, I'm always thinking, how can I bring value to clients without me knowing everything? But can I just connect the dots? That's what I've done over and over in my career, and I'm going to show you as well. And we're going to talk about day in and day out as well. So let's talk about the deep dive real quickly. Who doesn't do this stuff? These full CFO services, accounting tax firms, they're way too busy. They're understaffed. They're outsourcing overseas. They serve too many industries. Same for fractional CFOs that have 10, 20, 30 clients, multiple industries. Definitely not our bookkeepers or tax preparers who have hundreds of clients, and their knowledge may be limited as well. So that's good news for us. If we're going into one big industry, we're going deep. We're having a few clients, maybe 4 to 6 instead of dozens. And then we come into a situation where we find our new client, and what can I count on for my competition when I find this new client? It's going to be a mess, clean up. My owner's going to tell me that's why they're going to hire me. Like, oh yeah, my bookkeeper or my tax person or my firm, they're not responsive. It takes them a week to get back to me. They don't bring value. They just do bookkeeping. They're behind. There's errors, not white glove service. Let's talk about this as well, because we are going to do these things, especially bookkeeping, payroll, taxes, maybe audits, the nuts and bolts of day-to-day accounting. But the fact is, and this goes back for my entire 30-year career, the client views these things, and I get these services as well from my company, as a cost. There is no value in bookkeeping. There is no value in a tax return. There is no value in an audit or a payroll report. We still have to do it. We still want to do it right, but it's just a cost to the business owner. But our competition, that's what they're doing all day long. They're doing bookkeeping. They're doing taxes. They're doing audits, but it doesn't add value to the client. And so we've got to do more as well. So I'll quit hammering on that. So first off, when you come into the DOPE CFO program, there are requirements you need to deliver the big value. First off, you have to have one industry, you have to have a great industry, and you have to go all in. If you don't do that, if you're a generalist like most of our competition, you're never going to be able to deliver the deep value that a DOPE CFO member can, because they've gone all into the industry. So that's just a choice you make. Same with your background, experience, degrees, knowledge. You've got great background. You're strong in accounting. You've done a lot of things. That's here. You've got to have a way to get education, and not just accounting and tax, but cost accounting, court cases, software, brands, products, science. We got to have education and everything. We've got to have a client acquisition system. And then what we're going to mostly talk about today is that toolbox of tools, SOPs, work papers to deliver value to that client. And then layered behind that is a world-class network of experts, CPAs, attorneys, vendors, others that can help us, so that when we need to connect a dot, if my client needs a indoor lighting system for their indoor grow, I don't need to know the answer. I can just go find it in my community and give it to my client. So instead of telling my client, I don't know, I'm just your bookkeeper or your tax person, why are you asking me about lighting? I want my client to always come to me first and think, Andrew probably knows the answer, and they'll find out I do. And I don't care if I do or not, because I'm going to find my community will, and then always invest in yourself. So let's talk about the services that you're delivering. Most of this is simple. Our onboarding, we're going to do that a certain way. Our cleanup, our day-to-day, we're going to have a very detailed month-end process, which our competition, again, is not going to do. Same with our reporting and our cash flow and tax planning. Again, our competition is very weak on this. They're too busy. And then the value add strategic cap raises and just being that number 2. So when we look at, this is just a simple diagram of transactions and events. That's where everything starts for accounting. Then it gets recorded. We do in our system a month-end trial balance tie-out. It's called the permanent audit trail. Then we roll into tied-out financials and investor reports, talking to the CEO, the owners, et cetera. Most of our competition is just doing record keeping at the high upper left and stopping and printing a button to print out a P&L, maybe a balance sheet, and that's about it. I split the month for every client. And again, assuming I've got that 4 to 5 client, day 1 to 20 and day 20 to 30. Day 1 to 20, it's like brushing my teeth every day. I got to do it every single month. It's got to be world class. It's called the MEC, the month end close. If this is done right, it's going to be the foundation for value. So we're going to review and close books. We're going to find and fix errors. We're going to use the permanent audit trail. You're going to tailor it to your client, and then you're just going to roll it forward every month. Each month one's a little bit trickier, but after that, you're just going to repeat and update it every month. This adds huge value. I'll talk about this in a minute. It's something definitely our competition is not doing, and it adds massive value to the client. It also makes sure the work we're doing is world class on the nuts and bolts. And then once that's done, we'll prepare the financials and reports that we're going to go meet with the client. And we're going to also update our perpetual data room, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. This is also something our competition does not do. They, in fact, do the opposite. And we're going to demonstrate how much value this is as well. Now, by day 19 or 20, maybe even day 18, we're going to be done. We're going to meet with the business owner to review the reports and also key insights. So as we go through this permanent audit trail process, we're going to find all kinds of key insights. We're going to be downloading POS reports, the ERP reports, the seed to sale. We're going to be doing tie-outs. We're going to identify both good things and bad things. As we analyze those things, we might see, gosh, I noticed I ran a report on what the highest selling product was at the dispensary this month, but we're going to pull some key insights and be looking for them as we do MEC. So when we talk to the CEO, we can highlight at least 2 or 3 things that they want to look at. We're also going to go over the rolling cash forecast. We're going to talk about the strategic direction for short and long term, and then asking the CEO, what are your pain points? What fires are you trying to put out? I might be able to help. We might not know. They just had an OSHA auditor arrive and they need help with that. We will discuss that as well. And then the fun part, this is where the value comes in. And again, what our competition is not doing, day 20 to 30, usually because they're way behind and they're not even anywhere near doing month-end close by day 20. Now we bring value. We sit back. We've done all our brushing teeth stuff that we have to do every day. It's all done. We're going to now look at items on our CEO's tick list. We're going to look at tax planning. We're going to look at projects. We're going to look at risk to mitigate. Anything and everything that's value, we're going to bring it. Let's talk about that again. It starts with that rock solid world-class accounting. So before we even get to the month-end close, this is just a reminder, we got to do onboarding and cleanup correctly. We need to make sure to have a good PPC process. Again, setting up a perpetual data room. This is simply a cloud-based data room of files, something like Dropbox or Google Drive, and it's on our clients. This is very important. It's on our client's server, not ours. Our competition does this on their share file. There's 100 services where they make the client send them all this stuff and then they lock it down and they keep it, and clients got to have passwords and they don't have their stuff. We do the opposite. We provide and organize this stuff. I call it organizing the client's closet. And so it's going to organize all their P files, their contracts, their insurance policies, their organization documents, but then all the accounting stuff, the tax returns, the invoices, the bank recs, the permanent audit trail every month, the reports, everything's going to be in that data room, and it's going to be updated once a month. It's going to be organized correctly, and it's going to add massive value to the client. This is a tool in the program. And again, this is in Excel, so you can tailor it to your specific client. And it's just very high level what we're going to do every month for every client, starting with kind of the last day of the month prior, counting that inventory, running some reports, doing the accounting, doing our tie-outs, doing our reviews, doing the meeting with the client, value add. And let's just run into this a little deeper. This example of the permanent audit trail, again, this is going to be 1 month. We start with the final trial balance and we go to the right, tying out all the balance sheet accounts, tab for every one of them. Same on significant P&L accounts like payroll or sales. That's going to give us alone a lot of insights into their business, just doing that process. And then we're going to tile forward to the left to their dashboards and financials. And again, this step alone is not done by our competition. It means that our clients are always audit ready. So if the IRS shows up or they need an audit for some reason, they're audit ready. They don't need to go get ready. They're already ready. They're lender ready. They're capital raise ready. They're investor ready. They're M&A ready. They're exit ready. Those things are going on in a big way in cannabis all the time. So when our clients are ready, they're going to recognize that. They may not know it day in and day out, but when the due diligence team comes or the auditor comes or the lender says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. CEO, I can't believe these permanent audit trails. I've never seen anything so amazing. We're going to give you a loan, or we're going to do the exit, or whatever it is. Again, big value. Don't skip on that process. Same with the perpetual data room. You're going to be organizing. The client's going to upload stuff to the PBC portal prepared by client, and then we're going to organize their stuff, not them, because they're not good at organizing. And number 9, that's where that'll expand into many subfolders by year. So every year is going to have all kinds of subfolders, tax returns, audits, bank recs, invoices, on and on and on, vendors. We're going to organize that. Again, it's on the client. It's very valuable to them. So they know their stuff is always organized. It's always up to date. It's always ready for them. Again, competition does not do that. On the financial reporting, again, most of our competition is doing a balance sheet and a P&L. We're going to do much more complete financials. We're going to do dashboards. We're going to tailor it to the client. We're going to give some key items like here's your revenues this month, gross profit, growth in whatever. But we want to ask the client, what are some things they want to monitor? Like I had one client that was a farm and they wanted to monitor their Instagram growth each month. I was like, great, let's monitor it and let's see what's going on. Let's hold the marketing team accountable for that growth. So we're going to get their feedback. We're going to do benchmark analysis. If they're a dispensary, what's their labor cost per sales? And can I compare that to other dispensaries? What about KPIs, financial ratio analysis, always budget versus actual analytics? We're going to do a deep dive into analytics and then rolling cash forecast for sure as well. And then we're going to present those to the client. So when we meet with a CEO each month, usually around the 20th, could be on Zoom, usually, where we're going to go through all those reports and our key insights and at a very high level. They're not going to want to read every number. We want to go very high level. I like to bring at least 3 key insights every month. Maybe I looked at the point of sale margin review, and I noticed a couple of products were really unprofitable and they're front and center on their front shelf, or whatever it is. Maybe it's labor costs, maybe it's insurance costs, whatever it is. I'm going to find some insights both on the good side and the bad side, and I'm going to bring it. Maybe it's something from the rolling cash forecast. Like, hey, it looks like we're going to go cash negative in 4 months from now. We need to think about loans and investment right now. So we're going to give that insights to the CEO. Doesn't have to be super complicated. Again, you've got a reporting tool in the program with those key financials, budget actual, dashboards, benchmarks, rolling cash forecasts. That's all they need to run their business if it's done in a world-class way and if the numbers are actually correct. How many clients have you found where the numbers aren't even correct to start with? So what good is reporting with crappy accounting? We're going to give that CEO time to share their pain points and fires to make sure we might be able to help on that, develop a punch list of things that they want us to work on the next 3 months. And then is there any longer term strategic? Are they opening new dispensaries? Other things we need to be thinking about, preparing for more capital, et cetera. So it's a simple meeting. We're going to go through stuff. We're already going to have some key insights that we found going through the month end close. We're going to ask them about their troubles, and then we'll figure out how to address them. And then the next month, we'll also address, oh, you told me last month you wanted help with that OSHA audit. Here's what I got done this month on that. And they're going to be happy about that. So it can be very simple. We're going to do that. That's going to add a bunch of value. And then we're going to leave and have that 10 days where all our main work's done. And now we can just go every client and look, what is the most key way I can add value at each of those 4 clients? And then I'm going to do it. If one client, it's a new software system, another client, we're working on controls, another client, we're raising capital, whatever it is, we're going to work on those things. And just by day 20, both the permanent audit trail and the perpetual data room, that already is bringing massive value to every client as well. It's also setting them up in the cannabis world for a correct tax return, which again is already helping the client. And then we'll do all these other things to add massive value from there. I've done 1,000 things in the last 26 years helping clients with value, and they will come up with many more ways you can add value as well as this long list. Here's another list. But you just never know what it's going to be. You engage in that conversation, and you don't just tell, you ask. What are you working on? What's an issue to you? What do you not like? What could be improved? What do you not like in our reporting? What would you like to see next month? We can always do these things. Again, it's not hard. We've just got to sit down and talk to the owner and point out what we're seeing on our month-end close side and going through some key insights and then adding that value. One thing I thought, while we're doing this, let's remember that we're accountants. We're making a difference in the world. We want to have fun along the way while we're paid well, making a difference in the industry. But so once we flip to serving clients, we still want to be able to maintain our VIP presence, participate, build out our thought leadership, be learning every day, because as we learn new things, we can translate that to value. I'm going to talk about one of those right now that's relative to our clients. And so we're going to stay involved in that as well and have fun too. A couple of pictures of our group to see. We have a lot of fun along the way. Okay, final thing, I'm going to wrap up, examples. How do we do this? Again, the easy part is the month-end close every month, that day 1 to 20. We just do the same thing every month. We knock it out of the park. We get the perpetual data room, the permanent audit trail, get the reporting, meet with the owner. Then we go off and we develop that value and do extra things. And so let's go back to that non-lottery ticket. For on you as a CFO, I'll give you a couple of great examples. One is this program. It's a great example of a non-lottery ticket. It might feel like a lot of money, but it's actually a very little chunk of money that you put in to invest in your business. But your upside over the next 10, 20, 30 years of your career is literally millions of dollars. If you can have 4 or 5 clients that are each paying you a 6-figure income over 10 years, that's a lot of money. And that doesn't even count the equity. So just this program has a lot of upside with kind of a low downside. Now, same when you go land your clients and using our program to do that, every time you get an equity position in a client, because you're a key member of the team, I contend that the CEO and the CFO are number 1 and 2 at any company, period. And so investors want to see that you're aligned and have some equity as well before they fund the company. And oftentimes, almost all the times, this equity, I've gotten many chunks of equity the last 26 years. And I think every single time it cost me zero. And so it was zero cost, all upside. I probably had 25%, 30% of those equity positions end up being zero. So I got nothing out of them, but big freaking deal. It didn't cost me a cent. And the ones that came in, home runs. Now let's talk about clients. We're always looking for non-lottery example for clients. I'm going to talk about a couple other examples for clients as well in the next slide. The one I've been pitching the last 6 months to everybody that will listen to me, if you are any kind of cannabis company right now that has more than 1 year of tax returns, you ought to be filing a protective refund right this minute, refund claim. It's a no-brainer, huge upside to every single cannabis client in the U.S. The cost is almost $0. It's almost zero time as me as a CFO, because what am I going to do? I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to get the tax person to file this form. It's a super simple form. We're going to make sure we do it right. It's going to cost me maybe 30 minutes of my time to connect the client and the tax person. The cost is going to be very low, even to the client, to file that form. If it doesn't work out, no big deal. Didn't cost them time or money. If it works out, we're looking at hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to our client. And I can guarantee you, when you bring that kind of value, and again, it didn't take you time or money, it didn't take your client time or money, it's all upside, it's a true non-lottery ticket. When that pays off, your client is going to be a raving fan of you forever. And when they're at the event and their cannabis buddies are complaining about their bookkeeper or firm, they're going to say, man, you should see Andrew. I didn't have any idea about this protective refund claim. He brought it to me. I got a check for 400 grand, and never would have happened with anyone else. So again, same with our perpetual data room, permanent audit trail. It's all upside for the client, and it's part of our fee already. So always be thinking about that for yourself and your clients. Where can you get value with little time and little cost? These are I just jotted down a few. This is my last slide. Examples through my career. It literally started on the first week of my first CFO job in January of the year 2000, or late January when I started that 10-year CFO job. It was a multi-generational oil and gas company that had a great grandmother. The grandmother, the mother, and the 4 siblings, one of which of the siblings was running the company. And I just started poking around. I was like, gosh, there's all these entities and it's multi-generation and it's getting handed down. And they had an estate plan from the top, McAfee and Taft, the biggest law firm in Oklahoma. And their estate attorney, Gary Fuller, was the president of that firm. He was a very big wig in his 60s in that firm. And I was calling him up, and I knew him separately, and I was bugging him. I was like, are you sure there's nothing else we can do to get some money down to the grandkids? The 3 of the 4 siblings that didn't work at the company were desperate for money. They wanted it, and they were bugging me about it. And I was like trying to think outside the box. He's like, well, Andrew, Thelma, the grandmother's 95 years old. She's probably not going to live long. And I've got a couple strategies that take 2 to 3 years before they would pay off. One's called a defective income trust. Long story short, I said, Gary, I saw her last week and she was gardening and she looked like she was 75 to me. She might live easily 5 more years. Jump to the end of the story. She was alive my entire 10-year career. She lived to be 105, and that strategy did work. We moved $18 million tax-free from her to the 4 grandkid siblings. They each got about a little bit over $4 million tax-free, and I can guarantee you they were extremely happy with me, junior CFO, who was supposed to be doing accounting and gas, and I got over here on the estate planning side of things, and I brought massive value. Did it take me any time or money? No. I just had to bug. Took me a few phone calls, and we drove. I took the guy Gary to Enid, Oklahoma, an hour drive to meet Thelma, and he saw her and he agreed, and we did the strategy, and it paid off. Apache Drilling, my boss came to me on my first day of work. He said, Andrew, me and Dan, who was the engineer at our company, we just started a company called Apache Drilling. Would you be able to do the accounting just on nights and weekends or whatever? It's going to be really small. I'll give you 5% of the company. And I was like, whatever, sure. That was the first equity I'd ever gotten in a client. And sure enough, that Apache drilling rig took off, and they did quarterly distributions every year for the next 4 years until it was sold. And my 5%, I got checks anywhere from 2,000 to 20,000 every single quarter for 4 years straight. Just because I said I'd do the accounting, which was basically nothing, and I had the person under me do it anyway. Forest Drilling, I founded a company with my boss and the guy Dan. We went out there, and he just, again, through conversations, we met a guy who had sold a drilling company, Steve Hale. We got together. We like, the capital's really flush right now. Let's go raise 30, 40, 50 million. We put on a roadshow, very little of our time or cost. We went and visited 20 investment banks and private equity firms in Dallas, Houston, and New York. We got 5 term sheets. We launched the company with $70 million, and we all got equity upside. It was a huge payoff for me, again, without much work. New Year's Eve, that was just something a deal was going to miss. He really wanted a property. It had to close on New Year's Eve. He called me that morning. I spent all day working on it when I was supposed to be on vacation. I got some things out of this, but again, it was me going over the top for my client. Another one was a pharmaceutical company hired me a year to help them with an exit. I looked under the hood. I was like, oh, this is a great company. They're growing rapidly. And the books were a wreck. I was like, okay, just give me, it was my first client when I moved to Oregon. I was like, give me 1% of the company. I thought it was going to be a 50 grand payout over a year or two. It ended up being a $250,000 payout. And again, I just asked, I said, let me do the upside. I could see it was a good deal. Now, on the flip side, the High Five Farms, I got 6% equity because I asked for more. I was smart enough to do that. It had a great team. They were very high profile. They had great investors. They had raised a bunch of money. They had a beautiful farm, and the damn thing went under, and I got 0. But that's okay. It was still a non-lottery ticket. I probably had about a 30% chance of making a high multi-million-dollar payout on High Five Farms, but that's the way it goes. I'd rather have had that than not had it. On the flip side, I got a really crappy company. I knew on day one this company's going under, which they did. And it was a penny stock. It was a testing lab. They needed help with due diligence. It was 2 days of work where I drove over the mountain 2 hours away, spent 2 days doing due diligence on a testing lab, and they gave me 60,000, something like that, shares of a penny stock that was worth basically nothing. It was all upside, a little bit of my time. The company I didn't believe in. I thought this would be 0, but it wasn't. Their penny stock popped. I watched it for 2 years, and one day it popped up to 4 cents a share or something like that for like 2 weeks. I sold my shares. I think I pocketed 70 grand. I was like, cool. I got 70 grand for a week of work. Now here's another one to bring down to the client. When I was at High Five Farms, I looked around. I was like, these yahoos have no clue how to farm. They're a bunch of hippies and musicians. And I don't know anything about farming, but I could tell real quickly they didn't. And I could tell the board was pissed off. And so what did I do? I looked around and I found Wally, who I'm still friends with to this day. He's an amazing agricultural expert and a cannabis growing expert. And so we brought him into Hi-Fi. He literally implemented lean methodology. He quickly got yield up. He got production up. And all those things brought cash. And what do CFOs do? We focus on cash. So me finding Wally took me a couple phone calls, bringing him to the farm, getting him hired, brought massive amounts of cash to the owners and investors, and made them love me. And again, did it take a lot of my time? No, but it was a key insight I had. And what was my insight? These kids don't know what they're doing on the farm. I just had to look around. It was a mess. And they were all partying and smoking weed and playing music and just adding animals. So anyway, there's lots of ways we can do that. We just learn. We keep our eyes open. We're always talking to the owners, the investors. We're asking them about their pain. We're looking around. We find ways to add value. That's what we do as CFO in Dope CFO. So thanks for listening to this long video. This is the steps. You're now serving clients. You start with onboarding. You're going to learn about the perpetual data room, the permanent audit trail, the month-end close, the reporting, and you're just going to do it, and you're going to get better every single month.